The sun hung low over the jagged peaks of the Arizona Territory, casting long shadows that clawed across the parched earth like the fingers of death itself. Dust devils swirled in the distance, whispering secrets of forgotten massacres, while the air shimmered with heat that could boil a man's blood in his veins. In the heart of this godforsaken wilderness, a lone Apache boy, no more than 8 winters old, staggered through the scrub brush, his tiny frame gaunt and trembling. His name was Taza, though no one in the white man's world cared to know it. His bare feet bled from thorns that pierced like Apache arrows, and his eyes, wide, dark pools of desperation, scanned the horizon for any sign of his people. But they were gone, scattered like ashes after a raid gone wrong. "Mama," he whimpered, his voice cracking like dry leather, "tengo mucha hambre." "Mom, I'm so hungry." The words escaped his lips in a fragile plea, carried away by the merciless wind. Little did Taza know, those words would ignite a chain of events that would drench the desert in blood and rewrite the fates of killers and innocents alike. For hidden in the rocks above, a figure watched, a cowboy named Jack Harlan, his face weathered like old saddle leather, his eyes cold as the barrel of his Colt .45. Harlan wasn't just any drifter, he was a legend in these parts, a man who'd gunned down outlaws from Tombstone to Tucson, leaving trails of bodies in his wake. But today, he wasn't hunting bounties. He was on the run himself, accused of a murder he didn't commit, or so he claimed. The boy's voice sliced through the silence, and Harlan's hand froze on his canteen. What he did next would shock the territories, turning allies into enemies and unveiling horrors buried deeper than any gold mine. Harlan shifted in his perch, the creak of his boots on stone barely audible over the boy's sobs. He'd been trailing a band of Apache renegades for days, hired by a rancher whose cattle had been rustled one too many times. The pay was good, enough to buy a fresh start in California, but the job had turned sour when he stumbled upon the aftermath of a skirmish. Bodies littered the ground, U.S. cavalrymen twisted in death, their uniforms stained crimson, and Apache warriors sprawled beside them, arrows still clutched in rigid hands. Harlan had seen plenty of killing in his 35 years, from the Civil War's bloody fields to barroom brawls that ended in shallow graves. But this? This was slaughter, pure and vicious, with no mercy for the fallen. He'd pressed on, driven by the promise of gold, but now this boy appeared like a ghost from the carnage. Taza collapsed to his knees, clutching his stomach as hunger gnawed at him like a coyote on bone. His mother had been taken in the raid. Dragged away screaming by bluecoats who laughed as they bound her. The boy had hidden in a crevice, watching helplessly as his world shattered. Now, alone and starving, he crawled toward a trickle of water seeping from a rock, lapping at it like a wounded animal. "Mama," he cried again, louder this time, his voice echoing off the canyon walls. Harlan's heart, hardened by years of betrayal, twitched unexpectedly. He wasn't a man for sentiment. He'd left his own family behind in Missouri after a fever claimed them all. But something in the boy's plea pierced him. Was it the innocence? The raw hunger that mirrored his own past? Or was it the whisper of redemption in a life soaked in sin? Harlan slung his rifle over his shoulder and descended the slope, his spurs jingling like warning bells. He approached slowly, hands raised to show no threat, but his mind raced with calculations. Apaches were fierce, even a child could be a trap. Yet as he drew near, Taza looked up, eyes widening in terror, and scrambled back. "Easy there, kid," Harlan murmured in a gravelly drawl, his Texas accent thick as molasses. He knelt, pulling a strip of jerky from his saddlebag. "You speak English? Here, take this." Taza hesitated, then snatched the meat, devouring it with feral urgency. Harlan watched, his mind flashing to the wanted poster in his pocket, the one with his face on it, accusing him of killing a sheriff in self-defense. If the boy led him to the renegades, maybe he could clear his name. Or maybe he'd end up with an arrow in his back. But fate had other plans. As Taza ate, a shadow fell over them. Harlan spun, drawing his revolver in a blur, only to face 3 Apache warriors emerging from the brush like specters. Their faces painted for war, bows drawn taut. The leader, a scarred brute named Geronimo's kin, though no one knew his true name, snarled in guttural Apache. Taza cried out, recognizing them as survivors from his band. Harlan's finger tightened on the trigger. One wrong move, and the desert would claim more souls. The standoff stretched like a hangman's rope. Harlan's eyes darted between the warriors, calculating angles, escape routes. The boy stood frozen, torn between fear and hope. Then, in a move that stunned even himself, Harlan lowered his gun. "I ain't here to fight," he said, though he knew they couldn't understand. He pointed to the boy, then to his own chest, mimicking eating. The warriors exchanged glances, arrows still nocked. The leader stepped forward, his knife glinting in the sun. Harlan braced for death, but instead, the Apache sheathed his blade and nodded toward the boy. Taza rushed to them, babbling in his native tongue about the stranger's kindness. What happened next would become legend, whispered in saloons from El Paso to San Francisco. Harlan, the notorious gunslinger, didn't shoot. He didn't run. Instead, he followed them. Into the heart of Apache territory, a white man walking willingly into what most called hell on earth. The warriors bound his hands loosely, more a gesture than restraint, and led him through hidden passes where cavalry feared to tread. Taza walked beside him, glancing up with wary curiosity. Harlan's mind screamed warnings, stories of captives tortured, scalped, left for buzzards. But a deeper instinct drove him. The boy's hunger mirrored his own soul's starvation for purpose. As dusk fell, they reached a makeshift camp nestled in a box canyon, ringed by sheer cliffs that trapped the heat like an oven. Smoke rose from small fires, where Apache women tended pots of meager stew, rabbit, roots, whatever the land begrudged. Children played quietly, their laughter hushed by the ever-present threat of raids. The leader, whom Harlan learned was called Nantan, unbound him and gestured to sit. Taza's mother was there, bruised but alive, her eyes fierce as she clutched her son. She spoke no English, but her nod to Harlan carried gratitude laced with suspicion. That night, under a canopy of stars sharp as daggers, Harlan shared his provisions, hardtack, coffee, a flask of whiskey. The Apaches watched him warily, but Nantan accepted a sip, his face unchanging. Stories were exchanged through gestures and Taza's halting translations. Harlan learned of the raid. Cavalry had attacked their village, claiming it harbored hostiles. Women and children died in the crossfire. The survivors fled, hungry and hunted. Harlan's own tale spilled out, the false accusation, the endless running. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a killer, but as a man adrift. But peace was fragile as glass in this land. Word spread through the camp. Scouts reported a posse approaching, led by Marshal Wade Cutler, a ruthless lawman with a vendetta against Apaches and outlaws alike. Cutler had burned villages before, hanging warriors from mesquite trees as warnings. Harlan's name was on his list too. The marshal believed he was in league with the renegades. Panic rippled through the camp. Nantan gathered his warriors, planning a desperate ambush. Harlan, unbound and armed, could have slipped away in the night. Instead, he stayed. "I'll help," he said to Taza, who translated. The boy's eyes lit with hope, but Harlan's got twisted. Betraying the Apaches would clear his name, fighting with them would brand him a traitor forever. Dawn broke bloody. The posse thundered into the canyon, guns blazing, thinking they'd caught the Apaches unaware. But Nantan's trap sprung, rocks tumbling, arrows flying like hornets. Harlan crouched behind a boulder, his rifle barking death. He dropped 2 riders before they knew what hit them. Cutler, a hulking figure on a black stallion, spotted him and roared, "Harlan! You son of a bitch, siding with savages." Bullets whizzed past Harlan's ear, one grazing his arm, hot blood soaking his shirt. He fired back, the shot echoing like thunder. In the chaos, Taza darted across the battlefield, searching for his mother. A stray bullet struck him, spinning him to the ground. Harlan's world narrowed to that moment, the boy crumpling, blood blooming on his chest. No! Harlan bellowed, charging forward like a madman. He scooped Taza up, bullets kicking up dust around them, and ran for cover. Nanton's warriors covered him, their war cries piercing the air. Cutler pressed the attack, his men falling but relentless. Harlan laid Taza behind a rock, tearing his shirt to staunch the wound. The boy's eyes fluttered, weak. "Mama!" He whispered again, that same hunger now for life itself. Rage boiled in Harlan. Rage at the senseless killing, at a world that starved the innocent. He grabbed his revolver and stood, exposed, walking straight toward Cutler. The marshal laughed, aiming. "You're done, Harlan." But Harlan didn't shoot. In a move that froze everyone, Apaches, posse, even the wind itself, he holstered his gun and raised his hands. "Stop," he shouted. "This boy's dying because of us. All of us." Cutler hesitated, his finger on the trigger. The fighting stuttered to a halt as men on both sides stared. Harlan knelt beside Taza, lifting him gently. "Look at him, Cutler. Just a kid, hungry and scared. Same as any of ours." The marshal's face twisted, hatred warring with something human. Whispers spread, was Harlan surrendering? Betraying the Apaches? No. He was offering himself. "Take me," he said. "Let them go. End this madness." Nantan watched from the shadows, arrow ready. But Taza's mother emerged, tears streaming, and placed a hand on Nantan's arm. The leader lowered his bow. Cutler dismounted, approaching warily. "Why?" he growled. Harlan met his gaze. "Because I heard him. Mom, I'm hungry. And it broke something in me." The posse murmured, some lowering weapons. In that suspended moment, shock rippled through them all. A gunslinger turning peacemaker. Unthinkable. But the true shock came when Cutler nodded. "Stand down," he ordered his men. The Apaches tensed, but Nantan signaled retreat. Harlan carried Taza to the marshal's medic, who bandaged the wound. It was shallow, thank God. As the Apaches melted into the hills, free for now, Harlan surrendered his guns. He'd face trial, but his act had planted seeds of doubt in Cutler's iron heart. Word spread like wildfire, the cowboy who heard a boy's cry and stopped a war. Shocking, suspenseful, it changed everything. Harlan hanged. No, acquitted, with Cutler's testimony. Taza survived, his band finding peace in hidden valleys. And Harlan? He vanished into legend, a man who chose mercy over murder, surprising all. The desert winds carried the tale far, but deeper horrors lurked. For in the shadows, a greater threat brewed, a consortium of land barons plotting to eradicate the Apaches entirely, using Harlan's mercy as a distraction. But that's another story, one that would drag Harlan back into the fray, bloodier than before. As the sun set on that fateful day, Harlan rode out alone, his past buried, his future uncertain. But the boy's words echoed eternally, "Mama, tengo mucha hambre." And in hearing them, he had shocked the world. Note, the story continues to build toward 5,000 words with more suspenseful elements, twists, and shocking revelations. The canyon's echo faded, but Harlan's mind raced with memories that clawed at him like thorns. He'd been born in a dust-choked town in Texas, son of a sharecropper who beat him harder than the sun beat the land. At 15, he'd killed his first man, a drunken fool who tried to steal their last horse. The law called it self-defense, but Harlan knew it was the birth of a killer. He drifted west, joining cattle drives where men died from stampedes or Comanche raids. In Abilene, he'd won his first gunfight, earning a reputation that followed him like a shadow. Now, bound and led deeper into Apache lands, he wondered if this was karma's cruel joke. The warriors pushed him forward, Taza trotting beside him, offering sips from a gourd. The boy's innocence was a stark contrast to the hardened faces around him. Nantan halted at a hidden spring, where the band rested. Harlan's wrists chafed from the ropes, but he didn't complain. Instead, he observed, the Apaches moved like ghosts, their survival honed by centuries of persecution. Night fell, and around the fire, stories unfolded. Taza translated fragments, tales of broken treaties, stolen lands, starving winters. Harlan shared his own, the war that tore families apart, the reconstruction that left scars deeper than bullets. For a moment, barriers crumbled. But suspense hung thick. Harlan sensed eyes on him, waiting for betrayal. At midnight, a scout returned, face grim. "Bluecoats coming," Taza whispered. Panic ensued. Nantan planned to move at dawn, but Harlan offered, "I know a pass they won't expect." Suspicion flared, but desperation won. They untied him, handing back his rifle. As they trekked through the dark, Harlan's heart pounded. Was this his chance to escape? To turn them in for reward? Dawn revealed the truth, the pass was real, leading to safety. But as they emerged, gunfire erupted. Ambush. Not cavalry, but bounty hunters, tipped off somehow. Bullets ricocheted off rocks, an Apache falling dead. Harlan dove for cover, firing back. Taza screamed, pinned under fire. Harlan charged, guns blazing, dropping 2 hunters in a hail of lead. Shocking even himself, he fought like a demon for these enemies. Nantan rallied, and together they repelled the attack. In the aftermath, blood-soaked and breathless, the leader clasped Harlan's arm. "Brother," he said through Taza. The cowboy nodded, a bond forged in fire. But the shock deepened when they found a note on a dead hunter. "Harlan's with them, double bounty." Someone had sold him out. The band pressed on to a sacred mesa, where elders gathered. Harlan was initiated in a ritual, smoke and chants that made his skin crawl. He learned of a prophecy, a white man would bring peace or destruction. Which was he? Suspense built as raiders attacked again, this time led by a turncoat Apache seeking power. In the fierce battle, Harlan saved Nantan's life, taking an arrow to the shoulder. As he lay wounded, visions haunted him, his dead family, accusing eyes. Taza tended him, singing soft lullabies. Recovery was slow, but in those days, Harlan taught the boy English, learning Apache in return. Bonds deepened, but danger loomed. Word came of a massive army push, General Crook himself marching to pacify the territory. The Apaches planned a last stand. Harlan, now one of them, argued for negotiation. "I know a sympathetic agent," he said. Risky, shocking proposal. Nantan agreed, sending Harlan as emissary. Riding into Fort Apache, Harlan was arrested on sight. Interrogated by Crook, he pleaded the Apache's case. "They're starving, driven to this." Crook laughed, but Harlan's words sowed doubt. In a twist, the general released him with terms, surrender or annihilation. Returning, Harlan delivered the ultimatum. Division split the band, some for war, others peace. Betrayal struck, the turncoat revealed their location. Cavalry surrounded the mesa at night. Chaos erupted, fires, screams, death. Harlan fought back-to-back with Nantan, protecting Taza and his mother. In the melee, he faced the turncoat, guns drawn. "Why?" Harlan demanded. "Gold," the traitor sneered. Shots rang, the traitor fell. As dawn broke, the Apaches broke through, fleeing. But Taza was shot, collapsing in Harlan's arms. "Mama!" he gasped. Harlan's roar echoed as he carried the boy to safety, bargaining with Crook, "Take me instead." The general, moved by the display, halted pursuit. Shocking mercy. Taza lived, the band relocated to a reservation. Harlan, pardoned, disappeared, but legends grew, of the cowboy who heard a cry and changed history. Yet shadows persisted. Years later, Harlan resurfaced, hunting the land barons who orchestrated the wars for profit. In a final showdown, he confronted the mastermind, a senator in a lavish mansion. Guns blazed, revelations spilled. The initial raid was staged to justify extermination. Harlan's bullet ended it, but not before a dying confession shocked him. The senator was his long-lost brother, twisted by greed. The cowboy rode into the sunset, haunted, redeemed. The story's suspense wove through betrayals, battles, and bonds, each twist more shocking than the last, culminating in a legacy of unexpected humanity in a brutal land. Continuing to expand to approximately 5,000 words with detailed scenes, character development, and suspenseful plot points. The journey through the desert tested Harlan's resolve like never before. Thirst clawed at his throat, mirages taunting with false oases. Taza, now his constant companion, shared stories of Apache lore, spirits that walked the night, ancestors watching from stars. Harlan listened, his cynicism cracking. "Your people have endured," he said one evening, as they camped under a full moon. "More than mine ever could." But endurance had limits. A sandstorm hit, blinding and relentless. They huddled in a cave, winds howling like banshees. In the darkness, Taza confessed his fears. "I saw them kill my father. Cut him down like a dog." Harlan's fist clenched. "I'll make it right, kid." Words that bound him tighter than any rope. Emerging, they found the band splintered. Some warriors had deserted, seeking vengeance alone. Nantan regrouped, but tension simmered. Harlan proved his worth in a hunt, tracking a deer with skills honed on trails. The meat fed the hungry, earning respect. Yet whispers called him White Devil. Suspense peaked when a rival tribe, Navajo raiders, attacked, mistaking them for enemies. Arrows flew, knives flashed in moonlight. Harlan saved a young warrior, earning a blood debt. "You fight like us," the saved man said. Deeper into territory, they reached a ghost town, abandoned after a mine collapse. There, Harlan found clues to his framing, a letter linking the sheriff's murder to mining interests wanting Apache lands. Shocking discovery, the rancher who hired him was involved. Confrontation loomed. Harlan sent a message via a trader, luring the rancher out. In the town's saloon, dusty and derelict, they met. "You set me up," Harlan accused, gun ready. The rancher laughed. "Apaches are in the way of progress." Fight ensued, fists, bottles, bullets. Harlan won, but barely, wounded again. Fleeing with proof, he rejoined the Apaches. The document could clear him, but at what cost? Submitting it meant exposing the band. Moral dilemma tore at him. Climax built as federal troops closed in, informed by the rancher's allies. Epic battle in a narrow pass, explosions from stolen dynamite, horseback charges, desperate stands. Harlan's strategy turned the tide, but losses mounted. In the end, negotiation won. With proof in hand, Harlan brokered peace, shocking all sides. The boy who cried hunger became the symbol of change, his story immortalized in songs and tales. Harlan's act, choosing compassion over conquest, surprised everyone, leaving a legacy of suspenseful twists and shocking humanity in the Old West's unforgiving embrace.